Welcome back to Cure for the Common Game. Today, in deck number 574, we're going to talk about Lurrus of the Dream Den. Everybody's favorite cat nightmare, which is, I don't know, synonym? Two words me to say? Anyway, the companions here, the companion restriction is not applicable if the creature is your commander. So, as which it is, because it is a legendary creature, and that's what I've got to do. So, I realize I don't have to abide by that, but I think flavor-wise I do, so that's how I'm building these 9. I say 9 because, Blue Tree's still banned. So, each permanent card in your starting deck has a converted mana cost of 2 or less. 3-2 lifelink. During each of your turns, you may cast one permanent spell with CMC 2 or less from your graveyard. Now, there's no Lion's Eye Diamond present, but and adhering to that restriction is kind of tricky. Now, it says each permanent card, so you can have cards that are more than 2 if they are instants or sorceries, So, I'll admit the very first thing I thought of when I saw the card, and maybe it's just because it's also a cat, is the whole Cauldron Familiar Witch's Oven deal. You loop it back and forth, whatever. That's where my mind went first, and I was like, then we can do stuff like the Cruel Celebrant that triggers off of that cycle, the Zulaport Cutthroat, Suture Priest, that was where my mind went first. And then I was like, well, I'm still going to need some kind of mana fixing. We are still talking about 2 colors. So, I had the Leaden Mirror, the Gold Mirror, and the Orzhov Signet. I didn't use Arcane Signet. It is 2, it would fit, but this is only 2 colors, and I only have so many Arcane Signets, I'm kind of reserving them for 3 or more colors. So, and I was like, well, there's got to be other things that I can loop, right? So, in with that, I was like, Skull Clamp. It's great card draw, and it's a great way to get those creatures into the graveyard. Because with Lurrus, I can play one a turn again. So I thought, well, that seems really good. Now, Ravenous Rats, which weirdly enough, when I listed the deck on Architect, couldn't find. I've never listed a Ravenous Rat before, which I kind of understand. But in this situation where we can loop it, and if we have the Skull Clamp, and you play the rat, they discard a card, kill it, or you clamp it, kill it, draw 2, and then you get to play it again. I mean, that's pretty awesome. And it's a cat eating rats. I mean, come on. Then I thought about, permanents that naturally just do a thing. Like War Piece of Thune, this is, I would normally be running like a disenchant in this slot, but I was like, you know what? 2/2s are going to die, right? But, like Pit Trap. Now, this is one, I think the first printing of this was an Ice Age. But, 2 to cast, 2 to use, and it just destroy attacking creature without flying. That's amazing. I mean, and it's reusable because Lurrus lets us get it back every turn. Carrion Feeder is another way to get those creatures into the yard. Planar Guide is a pretty decent, now granted, he exiles himself, so you can't really reuse him, but it is a great anti-wrath. Tortured Existence, maybe, to swap the cards in the graveyard with the cards in your hand, Just, that's where my mind was going. I was like, Unearth, because it kind of fit the theme. It's just, any creature is going to be CMC 3 or less, right? So, I started looking at some of the other creatures. 8.5 Tails, this is a pretty decent. This lets you pretty much get through if you need to get through. Sometimes it's a little expensive if they've got a bunch. So we've got Daxos. Now, Cartographer's Hawk. This is very clampable. It deals combat damage. Return it to its hand. It's reusable. If it dies, you can get it back. Thalia's Lieutenant has a pretty cool ETB, and there again, clampable. Knight of the White Orchid has a good ETB effect. That way, when you cast them over and over, you get it. Draenith Magistrate just says, this card is amazing. I just can't even. I know they banned it in Brawl. I'm hoping that they don't ban it in our format because, let's be honest, we have access to a lot more removal than just about any other format. But it keeps your opponents from playing their commanders, yeah. And anything from the graveyard or from the library. Take that, Pangalacial Worm. But then, I'll be honest with you, I kind of hit a wall. And I was like, well, what about stuff that, low CMC artifacts that put themselves into the graveyard for a thing? So, like, our Armillary Sphere here, it costs 2 to use. Yeah, I don't use this card a lot because I just don't like it. Because, I mean, effectively for 4 mana, you're putting them in your hand and not in play. So, but it is reusable. You can, just not miss land drops. Chromatic Star and Chromatic Sphere, kind of the same thing, except this is some card draw right here. 1 to cast, 1 to use. Sack it. Draw a card. That mana, I'm going to use to play it again from the graveyard, right? So, just a little card draw engine, and that's where I got stuck. And I went, well, let's look at some other cards that we're going to need. I'm going to need a little card draw, Ambitions cost, some removals, so I got Demystify, a Citywide Bust, Murder, Deicide, Suspension Field, Pacifism, trying to use as many permanents as possible, right? Because I can replay them. Heartless Act, D-Spark, Dire Tactics. I didn't have any of the really cool black-white, the Vindicates, Utter Ends, whatever. Anguished Unmakings, all those. So I was at an impasse. And I'm like, well, I really don't want anything to happen to Lurrus. So I was like, I need Lightning Greaves and the boots both. They both fit, the 2 CMC. So I was like, I just don't know. And then I got to looking at what all I have there, and I noticed that was a ton of artifacts. Just an absolute bunch of artifacts. And so I got to thinking, I was like, wait a minute. How many more artifacts do I got to put in to make Cranial Plating be useful, right? So I said, well, with Cranial Plating, I'm automatically going to put in Ornithopter because strapping it to an Ornithopter is, that's living. Ichor Wellspring, when it enters the battlefield or is put into the graveyard, you draw a card. So you draw a card coming and you draw a card going, and then Lurrus is going to let you replay something once a turn. It might be Ichor Wellspring. It might be Mycosynth Wellspring, which does something similar. Bloodthirsty Blade is akin to a pacifism. It's really close to removal. It goes it. So, hey. The Throne of Geth, I put in there to sacrifice the 2 Wellsprings. Like, this gives me a sacrifice outlet. There are others. Ashnod's Altars 3, Crackline Ironworks is, everything's more than the 2 mana allowed by Lurrus. So, and I thought, what about these cool spell bombs, The Necrogen spell bomb, Sunbeam spell bomb, the Puzzle Knot, Heal spell bomb. So, I was like, you know what? We may actually get somewhere with this. So, I threw in the Retrofitter Foundry, Disciple of the Vault, because, why not? And Disciple of Vault cares about artifacts. It doesn't care if it's an artifact creature. So, Signal Pest, Arcbound Slith, because this you really want to sacrifice because it gets to move those counters thanks to modular onto another artifact creature. That's kind of, Mirror Retriever. It's going to go get something back. Welding Jar, because why not, right? Edge Right. Double Strike is a really popular thing. Ritual of Restoration, just to bring that artifact back. Now, here, let's go through these non-basics real quick. There's not a lot. Evolving Wilds. Encroaching Waste. I love destroying the target non-basic lands because there's a bunch of them out there that will wreck your day. Forsaken Sanctuary, Basilica, Scoured Barrens, and Caves of Koilos. I still maintain that they misnamed this card. If you know anything about the lore of the Brothers War, the Caves of Koilos is the beginning. And it was such a special place. And just to make it a dual land, it needed some kind of epic level something. Anyway, I threw in a Tainted Strike. Just simply because, we've got the plating, we've got the... why not? And it ain't got to be our creature. I mean, you can throw this on any 9-power creature that player B is attacking player C with, and you're in business. Somebody's dying. Also, Honor the Fallen. Now, I know we are kind of... I feel like I'm almost trying to do too much with this deck, and it's not real focused in any one area, but that's kind of how my mind went with this thing. Now, I've got 6 cards left. And... Rune of Protection. Now, let me sell you on it. Okay. Lurrus likes it because it's 2 CMC. Alright. You can spend a white and prevent all damage to you from a green source. Now, this is the Urza Saga version of the Circles of Protection. However, these are definitively better because they have cycling. So I can spend 2 mana and cycle this. If green is not the problem at the table, I can just spend 2 mana and cycle it. It goes to my graveyard, I draw a card. But Lurrus still says I still have access to it because I get to play it. A permanent CMC2 from my graveyard every turn. So... we can cycle and cast from the yard? What? So, that's what I did. I put in all 6. I did not do the Rune of Protection lands, because that's not that big a deal. But artifacts kind of is. But that's what I've got for Lurrus. It is... it's kind of a different animal, I'm not going to lie. But... I'm kind of anxious to see how it plays. I don't know if it'll be any good or not, but we're going to find out. So, I appreciate you watching. Y'all let me know what you think. Oh, I got to put it up on the wall, don't I? Almost forgot. So, 574 is done. Lurrus is on the wall. Yeah, I almost messed up and ended the video too soon. Anyway, I appreciate y'all watching, but right now, I think we're going to shuffle and cut.